What's going on, family? Just want to take this time, man, to address y'all concerning this topic that's been all over the internet recently regarding whether Puerto Ricans help create hip-hop or were Puerto Ricans foundational to the creation of hip-hop culture. For those who don't know me, man, my name is, I go by the name of King Tone, among many other names, but I'm known as King Tone, the Universal Zulu Nation. I've been a member of the Zulu Nation since the late 80s. I was the president of Zulu Nation Japan for 10 years. And as you can see by the flag behind me, I'm Puerto Rican. And as you could clearly see with your eyes, I'm black. So this is a topic that is kind of near and dear to me because it's something that I've dealt with my whole entire life. Being Puerto Rican and being black. Like, those two things are not supposed to go together or something like that, which is ridiculous, which is the reason why I'm doing this. One thing I want to try to clarify for the record is that Puerto Ricans are black, period. Puerto Ricans are black. And when I say black, I'm not necessarily talking about color, because as you know, Puerto Ricans come in all different shapes, sizes, and colors, because Puerto Rican is not a race. Puerto Rican is a culture. Okay, but Puerto Ricans are black, and the reason why I say that is because Puerto Ricans are part of the diaspora of Africa. So anywhere on the planet where you have people who can trace their lineage back to Africa is black. Whether they a different shade or whether they done mixed with some other shit, they still black. What you're seeing right now is very dangerous because this is just another form of divide and conquer, which is some old Willie Lynch shit that they've been using on us since the beginning. Okay? Separate the tall from the dark, from the short, the dark from the light skin, the fat from the skinny, the East Coast from the West Coast. All this division is meant to keep us fragmented and separated. So it's a scam. This is another ploy to sow division into our community, which is the reason why I'm making this message, because I feel like it's that important that anybody that has any kind of insight on this message or on this topic should speak on it. Right? If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem by default. So that's what brings me here right now. So I just want to share that with you. Puerto Ricans are black. Now you do have some Puerto Ricans that might want to say, well, I'm not black, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm this, I'm that. And of course, because there's a stigma and a stereotype that's been socially engineered into being black. And that's just not here in the United States, that's all through the Caribbean. You got to remember, slavery was in the Caribbean hundreds of years before it even got to the United States. So anything that the slaves went through over here, we went through it first in the Caribbean. Okay? The only difference is that in the Caribbean, we retained a lot more of our culture as it pertains to African culture. With the drums, the congas, the musical rhythms, the call and response. If you know anything about Puerto Rican music, you know about bomba, plena, or any of these type of music forms, we utilize call and response. Anywhere that you see a polyrhythm or call and response, that's African. Okay? So, fast forward to the 40s, late 40s, early 50s, Puerto Rico becomes a commonwealth of the United States. And as a result of that, you have this huge influx of Puerto Rican people, my parents included, that came from the island directly to the States. And one of the places that they ended up in was New York. So now you have this whole immigrant community now coming in, and they get put right in the hood, right with all the black people, with the other black people. Let's put it that way. So now you got Puerto Ricans and blacks all living in the same neighborhood. So we're all subjected to the same things. We're all being influenced by the same external influences. We're hearing the same music. We're seeing the same visuals, and we're kind of immersed in the same type of social engineering program that everybody else is. So from that point forward, we are sharing an experience. Now, there may be some cultural differences because you gotta remember, so-called FBAs, or Foundational Black Americans, which I don't even know what that means. That's some new shit. But okay, those are black people who can trace their lineage back to slavery in the United States. But at some point or another, their parents, whoever their slave, ancestors were, came from Africa. They weren't born slaves. They were enslaved people. So they came from Africa. And a lot of them came from the Caribbean, quiet as it's kept. Okay? A lot of the Africans that were brought to the United States did not come directly from Africa. Because at that point, as I said, slavery had already existed on throughout the Caribbean and in South America. So it was much easier to get blacks from there than have to import them all the way from Africa. So we've always had a shared history between the Caribbean and the United States. Fast forward to the 70s, when you see the formation in the beginning of hip hop. Of course, it started in the black neighborhoods, it started among the African American community, but we were part of that community. We were not excluded from that community, even though there was some tension. There's tension. That goes back to tribalism. As a matter of fact, when they came to Africa to get us, what was we doing? We was fighting each other, right? You had the Monomatapa Empire, you had the Ashanti Empire, you had all these different groups, these empires, right? The Yoruba, Oyo, all of these different groups that were fighting each other. And whenever one group would defeat the other group, they would take the captives and they would sell them to the Portuguese. That's how that whole slave trade thing got started, because we were fighting each other. And they realized that as long as we was fighting each other, they could play one side against the other, which they did. So when we look at this whole topic right now with whether Puerto Ricans helped create hip hop and all this stuff, it's really a pointless fucking issue. Excuse my language, but I just have to say it like that, man, because it's so ridiculous to me that we're having this discussion now in 2022. You know what I'm saying? When this is something that we've known and our elders have taught us this. Going all the way back to the 60s and 70s. Puerto Ricans are black, and yes, Puerto Ricans were there since the very beginning of hip hop. And if you want to say, well, we didn't see too many Puerto Ricans, what about if I was up in there? If I was up in there, you wouldn't even know I was Puerto Rican. You would just think, oh, this is just another black brother up in here. And I'm not an anomaly. There's a lot of black Puerto Ricans. So yes, we've been there since the very beginning. When you think about all the early breakbeats, that used to get people going on the dance floors and stuff like that, one of the principal sounds in those breakbeats was the conga and the bongo. If you listen to Apache, that whole break is nothing but bongo drums. Bongo drums didn't come from America, dude. Bongo drums were imported from Africa, came to the Caribbean, and then eventually ended up here. So our influence has always been integral to the creation of hip-hop as a culture. We've been here since the beginning. When you talk about the dance forms, everybody knows that the Puerto Ricans dominated b-boying for a very long time. You know what I'm saying? Not to say that there wasn't a lot of black b-boys, because there was. But what made the Puerto Rican b-boys stand out is that we brought those elements of salsa, merengue, mambo. You know what I'm saying? We brought all that flavor to the dance. When we would dance, we would throw that little cha-cha step in there. You know what I'm saying? We would add these elements that took the art form to another level. That's the reason why eventually the whole b-boy thing was being dominated by mostly Puerto Ricans. And the reason why was because a lot of brothers that were FBAs, Foundational Black Americans, whatever you want to call them, didn't have that cultural experience of, even though something inside them made them like attracted to the drum, you hear that drum beat, it just wakes something up inside of you. You know what I'm saying? It's something that you just got to gravitate to if it's in you. So yeah, they heard it and they gravitated to it, but they didn't have the foundation of it the way we did, because we had that cultural attachment to it. which is something that they didn't have at the time. Okay, so now, long story short, we start incorporating all these things into hip hop, and then hip hop eventually unfolds to become what it is today. You know, so for us to sit here now, because hip hop is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and I get it, you know what I'm saying? A lot of brothers that are out here right now feel like, yo, you know, every time we come up with something, somebody want to take it from us. True, I get that, but quiet as it's kept, and truth be told, some black people have a tendency to do the same thing. Like I told you, I was the president of Zulu Nation Japan for 10 years. Okay? And I had Japanese people coming up to me, telling me why are black people saying that they created karate. Because it's true. If you listen to a lot of music, if you read shit, if you listen to a lot of these so-called conscious community people that would tell you, oh yeah, you know, there was hieroglyphs in Egypt of people doing martial arts, so we started karate. You know what I'm saying? The Japanese owe us for karate and shit. We invented that. No, we didn't. We might have been doing martial arts, but karate as an art form is something that is inherently belongs to Japan. More specifically Okinawa, and then up into Japan. So that's just one example. We take credit for a lot of things sometimes because we say, well, we were the first ones to do it. We were the first people on the planet. So therefore, it's us. That's our shit. Nah, bro. We can't do that. And then expect to not have other people try to, you know, acclimate themselves or try to, what's the word I'm looking for? Try to appropriate our culture, because we're doing the same thing to other people. All right, but let's move beyond that for a minute. Right, you treat that as an aside. When you talk about hip hop, when you talk about just everything about hip hop, you gotta understand that hip hop is an African vibe. It's so old that the energy that's behind it, because energy never dies, right? It's just recreated. So the energy that was the source of hip hop, and I can tell you as somebody who was an active participant, I'm a 70s baby, I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, I grew up around all that shit, you know what I'm saying? I can tell you for a fact that hip hop was a vibe. Hip hop was something that you could come out at night, on a Friday night, and stand on the Broadway Junction platform, and you could just feel it from the city, just like pulsing. Like, oh yeah, this is gonna be one of those nights. Like, hip hop was just one of those things that you could feel. You know what I'm saying? And we all felt it, and we were all stimulated by it, and we all contributed to it. So what does that mean? Yes, hip hop is a black creation, but Puerto Ricans are black. And when you talk about, and when people, and I think some of the confusion is when you're talking about, when they say, some people say Latinos help create hip hop. Now that can be disputed, because Latino is a broad term. Mexicans are considered Latinos, but there weren't a lot of Mexicans in New York at that time. A lot of Mexicans on the West Coast, but not on the East Coast. The East Coast is right in line with the Caribbean. It's a straight shot. So you had a lot of Puerto Ricans in New York. You had Dominicans, right? You had Panamanians. You had some Cubans. You didn't have a lot of Argentinians. You didn't have a lot of Salvadorians at that time. Now we got, but at that time we did. So when you say Latinos, these other Latino groups came around way later. But as far as Puerto Ricans go, as far as Latinos of Caribbean descent, we've been there since the beginning. And can't nobody, and anybody that tells you anything's different is mistaken. I ain't gonna say they're lying to you, but they're mistaken. I just want to add one more thing, man. You know, when you get, for example, Busta Rhymes saying that hip-hop was started in Jamaica and this and that, that is incendiary, of course, because right off the bat, people's going to be like, nah, it wasn't. You know what I'm saying? That's bullshit, this and that. Y'all trying to take credit for shit. No, but the energy of it, that kind of the vibe came came from Jamaica as far as the systems being outside, putting the sound systems outside. That's something that they was doing over there. That's something that they added on. So when you say, what did they bring to the table? They brought that. They brought that. Now, they wasn't playing break beats and they wasn't doing that, but they brought that element to the table, the sound system. Sound for the music for the people, for the community. Because remember, at the end of the day, this is all based on Africanism, right? If that's even a word. Afrocentric thought, let's put it that way. And one of the core principles of Afrocentric thought is community. It takes a village to raise a child. That's an African proverb. You know what I'm saying? Community. So when you start putting the music out there and it's free for the people and, you know, the whole community can come out and embrace it and everybody in the community can come and dance and share, that's what we do as black people. That's what we do. So to say that, like, okay, yeah, the first ones that did it were black or this and this and that is like an argument that, number one, can never be proven. Like to say as far as like, okay, well, it was just black-skinned people that did it. Because, again, you don't know who's standing next to you. I could have been standing there. You'd have never known that I'm Puerto Rican. Unless I tell you I'm Puerto Rican. Unless you hear my accent, because I do got a little accent. I speak 3 languages. I got an accent. You know what I'm saying? Or unless you met somebody in my family who was more typically Puerto Rican looking. Then you can say, oh shit, that's your sister, that's your cousin. Oh man, I didn't know you were Puerto Rican. Well, yes, I am. So this whole topic, man, is something that I hope we don't spend too much time on, because really it's a frivolous thing. But I just want to say that we've been there since the beginning. You know, my big bro, Grandmaster Caz, has a saying when it comes to hip hop. He goes, we built this building and we know our way around. Well, let's put it this way. If black people laid out the foundation for hip hop, Puerto Ricans were right there in the beginning, bringing them the materials, helping them construct it, helping them put the walls up, helping them do everything. We co-created hip hop. I'm talking about Puerto Rican culture. I'm not going to say Puerto Ricans versus black, because we all black. But Puerto Rican culture, like that aspect of Latino culture, was very influential in the formation of what we call hip hop today. Period, point blank. So that's it, man. That's my message, and I'm going to leave it at that. A lot of people might have other stuff to say. I'm going to let them say it. But I just felt like I had to speak on this shit, because this is something that, number one, I witnessed. I was a participant. I was there. Number two, I'm the demographic you talking about. I'm the dude you talking about. I'm that black Puerto Rican that you talking about. And I'm telling you, we was there. And we gonna be here. Alright? Peace.